when you're in a moment and you feel inspired, the best moments kind of to live for when you feel like the music is kind of coming through you. Like you're not really doing much, like the song takes its own course.
Welcome to episode 122 of the Bass Shed podcast. My name is Ryan Roberts. All right, what's going on, folks? What's going on? Hope all is well. All right, so typically on these episodes, I talk a little bit about what's happening with me, right? Oddly, I can't even think about what's happening with me. What is happening with me? The schools I work at, those have picked back up for the spring. So I've been locking in the new schedules for that. That's the Burbank High School and Los Angeles College of Music. So I'm juggling those schedules with gigs and all the other stuff for the Bass Shed. Gig-wise, I had a couple fun ones over the weekend. I was playing a private event in Beverly Hills on Thursday. Comedian Chelsea Handler did a set. She was kind of like the headliner for the event. I've always dug Chelsea's comedy, actually. She was, her whole approach to comedy, and maybe as a person, I don't know her, but at least with the comedy, she's got a very raw, no BS approach. I think it's pretty funny. The set was great. Following that gig, the next night I was in Hollywood playing at a new spot called Arden. R, the letter R, Den. I think there's another place out here called pronounced Arden, but it's A-R-D-E-N. This is just Arden. Whatever that's worth. I was there. It's like their soft opening weekend. Swanky little restaurant with the jazz lounge in the back. That was cool. That was a lot of fun. On Saturday, I was up in Montecito, California, playing with another jazz trio. All the gigs were fun. All the musicians were absolutely fantastic, and it was an honor to work with them all. The first two gigs, this just to nerd out on some bass. The first two gigs, the Thursday and Friday ones, that was the maiden voyage. With the Aguilar Tonehammer 500 paired with the Epiphany UL 112. Butter, it's like butter. I love that combination of head and cabinet, right? The whole signal chain, I use the part of the signal chain. It's the whole signal chain. My bass is into the Trickfish Trilobite AB box because on those gigs I was doubling. Love the Trickfish stuff. Out of the Trickfish into the Aggie 500, into the Epiphany UL 112. For now, I am incredibly pleased with the gear portion of my sound. You know how it goes though. Let's see how long this lasts.
Hi, this is Jerry Jamont. I want to tell you about my upcoming book of bass transcriptions, JJ's Jukebox Volume 1. This is a collection of over 15 of my bass lines in standard notation and tablature. They are accurately done here by Ryan Roberts of the Bass Shed Academy. Each transcription is accompanied by a video where I talk about what was happening during the recording session, how I got involved, and how I approached each song. Stop by the BassShedAcademy.org to learn more about my book of transcriptions, JJ's Jukebox Volume 1, and purchase a signed copy of my memoirs, Make It Happen.
All right. My guest on the episode is Darek Oles. Here's a little background on Darek. Darek was born in Poland and at the age of 5 began his music education on piano, but later played guitar and electric bass. Finally, at the age of 18 years old, he switched to acoustic bass. While in his teens, he played in amateur groups, that ranged from rock, blues, jazz rock, straight ahead. In the early 1980s, Darek participated in various jazz festivals and national competitions for young musicians. In 1983, he was the most awarded musician at the Jazz Juniors in Cracow. I hope I'm pronouncing that right? Right? You guys know how it goes. Ryan's not good with the pronunciations. But he was the most awarded musician in the Jazz for Juniors, winning the first individual prize, the first prize for jazz composition, and a second prize in jazz combo. In the following 5 years, Darek was touring extensively in Poland, France, Germany, Czech Republic, Cuba, Mexico, and he performed at major festivals, concerts, and jazz club venues. In 1988, Darek Oles arrived in Los Angeles with a simple plan in mind to broaden his musical horizon. 1 year later, he received a full scholarship from the California Institute of the Arts, also known as Cal Arts, and began his studies with legendary bassist Charlie Haden. After he graduated in 1992, he accepted a teaching position at Cal Arts, where he has been conducting jazz ensembles and teaching bass ever since. Darek has been a very active performer and become one of the most sought-after bass players on the West Coast, and has had the opportunity to perform and record with the greatest masters in jazz, including Brad Mehldau, Billy Higgins, Pat Metheny, Joe Lovano, Eddie Henderson, Charles Lloyd, John Abercrombie, Benny Maupin, Lee Konitz, Peter Erskine, Alan Pasqua, and the list just keeps going on. With these and many other artists, Darek has recorded approximately 100 albums and performed hundreds of concerts throughout America, Europe, and Asia. Several of those recordings were nominated for Grammy Awards. Recently, Darek has released a new album titled Moods in Freedom. This album is a collection of 10 freely improvised compositions on solo double bass, and it is an absolutely beautiful record. I will have links to it in the show notes of this episode. I had a wonderful time chatting with Darek, and here's my conversation with jazz double bassist and the cat that's played with basically all my favorite musicians, Mr. Darek Oles. Glad we get a chance to chat. Your new record is fascinating. I definitely want to talk about that. I have some of your other records. How many records do you have out as a band leader total?
I started about 20 years ago releasing titles as a leader, and the first one was called Like a Dream.
Mm-hmm.
And I had Brad Mehldau playing with me some duos, and then LA Jazz Quartet, a couple of tunes, and had Nate Wood and Adam Benjamin play with me, and Benny Maupin. So that was my first one on the 2024 release.
Okay.
Then I did another project called LA Jazz Ensemble. That was a production for this European company. I invited Peter Erskine and Bob Shepard and Johnny Siegel. We did a really nice project with CD, DVD. I was the leader and arranger of the whole thing.
Oh, cool.
And then I did a bunch of other, as a co-leader projects with Larry Coons or my friend Mark Kravinsky. And then I started recording more solo albums.
Yeah.
After Charlie Hayden passed, I recorded a solo album called Blues for Charlie. And it started as just kind of practicing tunes that I learned from Charlie on lessons and listened to him. I just, after he passed, I was practicing bass and I realized, well, that would be good to actually record a solo tribute to Charlie at this point. And I did that. That was my first one. I have them actually here. I can show you. This is maybe you've seen this one. This is the Blues for Charlie.
Yeah.
Then some years later, actually during pandemic, when the pandemic first started, I recorded this album, The Promise, music of John Coltrane, all solo bass.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of John Coltrane, and it was kind of like therapeutic, music to get into during first months of pandemic when everybody was just shocked, not knowing what to do.
Right.
Yeah, and I had a history with Coltrane's family, and I played a lot and went to school with Ravi Coltrane and got to play with his mother several times on occasion. And we recorded something with Alice Coltrane and his brother Oran. And then in 2017, we commemorated 50 years of John Coltrane's passing. And I put together this project, Coltrane Sound, and I arranged music from that album, Coltrane Sound, that he recorded in 1960. And I invited Ravi Coltrane to play and a bunch of great people. We did several concerts. in California and Poland and places like that. So then when the pandemic started, I started thinking again about Coltrane's music, and I started working on it, on bass here, and I recorded this album, The Promise. That would be my second solo bass project.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple of years later, I recorded this one called Inspiration. I went back to some little classical pieces that I kind of arranged my way, and there's one of my tunes on it also that kind of reflects my classical harmony kind of influence.
So the classical pieces that you arranged, they're already standard repertoire by. Was there any kind of through line?
Yeah.
Like it was going to be a bass composer? Like did you focus on Dragon?
No. This is a little piano music actually on bass.
Oh, okay.
I've been always in love with Chopin's music, especially the slow pieces, nocturnes and preludes.
Sure.
And I listened to those for decades because I grew up in Poland, so Chopin's music was always there, and I played piano when I was a kid, and I attempted a few of those easier pieces to play on piano. And then years later, I thought, gosh, I have to record a Chopin project, and it took me a while to realize how to do it. And
Sure.
finally, I decided to start recording on bass some of those pieces. And on this album, half of the pieces are with another bass overdub, and some of them
Okay.
are just the bass itself. When you try to play Chopin's music on bass,
right.
there's all those voices and fingers that
Yeah.
are available on a button on bass. You have like what, four fingers maybe, and the four strings. So I'll try my best, but
Yeah.
I try to find the essence, melodic essence, harmonic essence, and recorded few of the Chopin pieces, one by Beethoven, one by Bach,
Okay.
and one of mine that kind of shows my influence of those composers. So that was my another solo album, Inspiration. And then more recently, I recorded that Moods in Freedom, which was all improvised music, kind of composed in a moment.
Sure. Yeah, I was curious about that. I didn't. There was definitely freedom to the element, freedom to the music. I didn't know how much was prepared going into it, and I wanted to talk to you about that. Was it completely improvised, where you were just like responding to sound and then it would develop? Or was there kind of a thematical idea or something that things were framed around to kind of launch you in, or as a building block for each piece?
Originally, it started as me thinking, how can I demonstrate free improvisation to my bass students? And maybe I should record specific pieces for them. But there was not much of a preparation. I just had one good evening here, inspired, and kind of energized, and decided to, in the moment, record pieces that would kind of make sense to me. Free improvisation, but also deliberate choices. And this is something I've done live on concerts a lot. When people ask me, "Hi, Darek, why don't you play intro to this tune?" Because they know, he plays these nice intros. And I started experimenting with that type of introduction, improvisation over 20 years ago. And I used to have a couple of strategies, because a lot of times when you have to play something free as an intro to a tune, it's kind of like this deer in a headlight,
Yeah.
What do I play?
Yeah, where do I start? Like, well, okay, the tune's in D minor, so I guess I'll start with a D. Yeah.
Exactly. I was just going to say, if the tune is in D minor, I'll just play some bass licks in D minor. That's what every bass player does.
Sure.
You just totally read my mind. Right?
Yeah.
D minor is like, okay, well, how about some,
Yeah.
I have to show that I can play fast and everything. And
Yeah. I got to get it all in right here. Yeah, right.
This must be impressive,
Yeah.
So I've seen that and I've done that, I always thought that was kind of like not great
Yeah,
because then I sound like a bass player that is just scared or whatever, is just trying to, practice in front of the audience. So I started thinking, well, what can I do to, let's say, if the tune is in D minor,
yeah,
what can I do to get to that D minor? Maybe I should think of
mm,
some other sound and then that resolves to. So at that time, I was working a lot on altered scales, like the dominant altered, which has
sure,
some really interesting intervals and kind of exotic sounding shapes. And I was like, oh
sure,
yeah, that would be a good strategy. If somebody asked me, hey, play a tune. If your tune is, let's say Alone Together or something, D
yeah,
minor, I'll start playing some abstract sounds, but based on a altered scale because that's something that I know that I can just start working on live, and that was my kind of starting point, and I would experiment and not necessarily giving away that sound right away, and then resolving to D minor and
sure. Right, then
and
you have the tune. Yeah,
yeah, and then we can start a tune. So that was my kind of strategy for a while, but then I started also thinking, well, okay. Well, if we just ended a tune on a gig that was in whatever minor or something, the next tune is going to be a minor. Maybe I should play some kind of like a more cheerful major melodies in
sure.
a completely different key and just try to connect that to the next, event. And
Right,
I started doing that, and Ryan, with those things, you have to be kind of lucky, to be inspired in the moment
sure.
and there's no guarantee that anything that you play is going to be any good.
Right, right, right.
It might be okay, but it might be just kind of like, not
Yeah,
happening.
you got through
Like,
it. Yeah, like it worked, but maybe it's not something you'd
yeah, people
ever
maybe
want to
thought,
repeat. Yeah,
that was nice, but then, so it's just a lot of it, kind of like a trial and error, and just trying to find some good music, and being inspired and focused in the moment. So I've done that many times, and sometimes I had some great results, and sometimes I thought, oh, well, I'm just playing some
yeah,
notes. So not always was really that great, but with years of kind of experience of doing that, I got kind of better, and my success rate got better and better.
sure.
Uh, and that little adventure is free improvisation. When you talk about free improvisation, there's a lot of things you can do. You can
Yeah,
all have all this freedom, but then you have to also make choices. You have to kind of be responsible with the choices that you make.
yeah. I mean, there's so many life parallels to that idea. You spoke. I want to come back to something you spoke about, which was being deliberate, and that's something I've always really enjoyed about your playing. Your note choices are always incredibly deliberate, and when I hear you playing through changes, you're always going to be very deliberate about highlighting the color notes and the changing tones between chords to really like I don't hear a lot of sequences or prepared ideas to get through a chord progression, but you're really outlining the necessary colors to make sure the harmony is communicated and your melody and your idea is communicated over the change. There's always a sense of deliberate and well intentioned and kind of purposed. How do you bring that kind of focus into playing free when you don't have the structure of like a chord change or like I know that, make this resolution point to outline the harmony? When there's no harmony, there's less structure to be deliberate with.
So I'm actually trying to compose something in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
This is when I play a solo over a tune, that's a composition, and
Yeah,
that's what a lot of now great jazz musicians are talking about. Like, I'm an improviser, but I'm actually a composer. If I
sure.
play a solo, Gary Bartz has been really big on that. He was like, man, I'm not an improviser. Improviser could be anything, could be a monkey improvising there, I'm a
Yeah.
composer. That's what Gary Bartz said on one of the interviews. I was like, yeah, man. So it's a composition in time, and it's a very similar process, but it's in time, So that's what I do when I solo over specific material. I'm trying to come up with a melody that will be actually sounding like a new song, like a
Sure.
new composition, let's say. So that was kind of like the attitude. The attitude is also another very important factor. You have to really want to do it, and
Yeah.
know that I'm putting my life into this, and it's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be just, oh well, let's see. I'm not sure if that's gonna come out. You have
Right,
to
yeah,
build,
right. Back to the D minor analogy. Like, well, let me just play some, let me
yeah,
just
just
play
play
this
some.
F up here and against the open D string, and that kind of sounds pretty. And
Hopefully,
now,
yeah.
yeah,
Oh, you have to have an attitude, and that's something that Tony Malaby, the great tenor player from New York, was talking
I
about.
know. Yeah,
So
I
I
know
got to
Tony.
work with him, and one time, man, he was like, we played with Liberation Music Orchestra in New York. I was invited to
Okay.
play Charlie's. This is after Charlie's passing, and Tony mentioned, man, I see that you were really inspired today for whatever reason. That's the attitude. That's the attitude. When you have that attitude, I really feel the difference. And then he came to Call Arts and talk about also about those things. So there's that attitude that you have to have. And I thought, so okay, well, I'm gonna record a few of those pieces. This one is gonna be just kind of in time, swinging, and maybe I'm trying to like do something like Ornette Coleman would do, or Charlie
Mm-hmm.
Hayden,
Yeah.
in time, kind of swinging, but no specific form or no specific harmonies. When Ornette played those solos back in the day,
Right.
you could tell the tune has changes, and Charlie would play kind of the changes. Charlie
Mm-hmm.
would be kind of inside voice in that music, but Ornette would kind of like play very deliberate, specific melodies, but they were not really over the changes. And
Right.
everybody was trying to figure that out. What is he playing? But
Mm-hmm.
it was great. It was really beautiful. So he
Yeah.
used that idea as like, I'm going to play something very deliberate in time that is going to maybe sound like a song, but it's going to be kind of abstract. I'm trying not to play like diatonic melodies on this one, but more chromatic and maybe some weird choices, weird intervals with that attitude. And that I recorded one. The next one, okay, well, now something contrasting. Maybe I was something now out of time that would maybe have some more definite harmonies, some kind of a D minorish,
Mm-hmm.
you or something Aeolian mode there. And maybe at some point I will move to another, let's say, chord that I find along the way. And again, with feeling, with spirit and attitude to really make it sound good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful, you could be very lyrical and then another tune. Okay, well, this one, maybe I'll do something kind of like medium swing, something that'll be almost bluesy, but also kind of abstract and free, but in time.
Yeah.
So those were like, it's just like, okay, now I'm gonna try something like this, and I hit the recording button.
Yeah.
Yeah, And again, you can try that and you may not like it. But at that point, I got lucky and recorded 10 tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And a while later, I thought, oh, I should maybe look into this. What do I record? And there's only those 10 tracks. There's no more.
See, I was curious about that, actually. I was curious not only about the artistic process that led to this record, but the recording process. And if some of them were, maybe because they're all really short. They're all a minute 30. They're all these short little vignettes, kind of, is how I
Right,
thought about it.
right,
But
exactly.
in my mind, I'm like, I wonder if some of these were like 4 minutes of
No,
something, and only this part was extracted. But it was as it's on there is as you played it.
yeah, from the
Okay.
beginning to the end. And there's only 10 of those.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wish I recorded a little more that night or maybe next day.
Yeah.
But because it's 10 short pieces, so like pressing a CD would be kind of lame, right? 12 minutes
Sure.
of music. So I
Yeah.
thought
Yeah. Yeah.
do
There's
it
also that.
online, streaming, download,
Yeah.
demonstration for my students or for whoever wants to listen to it. But I did not record more. There's this one story that comes to my mind when I met Keith Jarrett
Okay.
years ago. He came play with a trio, and one of my friends was friends with Jack DeJohnette. So we get tickets and we get a backstage pass, and we went to meet the artists. And Gary Peacock was, somewhere packing up his bass, so he didn't come out. Jack came out. It was very nice when we talked, and finally Keith came out. And Keith came. He was this short guy, and with this presence, it was like I thought I was standing next to some
The
different different being, not even
kind
human.
of deity figure. Yeah.
Incredible. And I had nothing to say, like I'm not gonna say a word.
Hmm.
But my friend Michael started talking to him. I was like, my God. He says, we really enjoyed the concert. It was so beautiful. And you recorded this one solo album. At that time, it was maybe a year after it was released. Melody at Night with You. It was the solo album that Keith recorded at home
Yeah, I know the
after
one you're talking about.
recuperating from this chronic fatigue syndrome illness
Hmm.
that he was out of commission for at least a year or two.
Yeah.
Late 90s, I think it was. And it's such a beautiful album. And I was wondering, would you consider doing an album like that again? And at that point, I was like, oh my God. It's like Keith having reputation is like Keith is gonna
I
just
know. Yeah.
destroy Michael at this point.
Yeah. He's basically
Why
like
ask that
the
question?
equivalent of Prince, but the
Yeah.
jazz version of Prince.
Oh my God. And I was like,
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that he asked that question. But Keith Jarrett was so kind. He answered,
Hmm.
well, actually, I tried and I had microphone and recording equipment in the same room, all ready to go, but the inspiration never came again. I could not make it happen. And hear
Hmm.
that from Keith. I was
Yeah.
like, wow. So, it kind of happened with this. I could probably record more, and I kind of wish I did, but I didn't. And they just kind of let this file sit in my computer for a while and then went back and I was like, wow, this is really sounding good. It kind of makes sense. And it's like, is there more? No, there isn't. There's only those 10 tracks. So, I mean, potentially, right, I could record more, but
Yeah, you could fire it up again. But I mean, so how long? The whole album is 12 minutes and 22 seconds. It is short, 10 pieces. Everything's just a little bit over a minute each track.
right.
Did you stop at 10 because you felt the inspiration
Yeah, I
had
guess,
left, or that you felt like maybe, sorry to interrupt, but you felt like that's what I need to say, and now I'm good?
yeah, I think that's something like that. It was like, yeah,
Yeah.
that was nice. It's like 10 pieces. Wow, I think I got some good stuff there. It was 10. I don't know
Hmm.
why it was exactly 10. I don't remember, but it just happened. And, it's a result of practice, result of being in music, for decades and decades, and result of having some experience of that life-free performance bass intros. So that was basically the strategy, and that's how it happened.
With your process about taking the history of playing the bass solos and having this and having done that for a long time and worked out inspirations and being able to tell the story, but with the intro you have a destination. You're taking it from silence to set up this tune.
Mhm.
On these pieces there's nothing. It's just you. It's not like you're trying to move the music in a specific direction tonally or feel wise or pulse wise. What were some of your inspirations for how these came out? Because you're not necessarily trying to get anywhere like you would be if you were doing an intro.
Mhm. Just like playing a song. Here's the
Okay.
song. Here's where it goes. And usually when you're in the moment and you feel inspired, the best moments kind of to live for when you feel like the music is kind of coming through you.
Sure.
Like you're not really doing much,
Right.
like the song takes its own course. And I just kind of consciously thought, well, I don't want to make it too long. I don't want to be dwelling over this. It doesn't need to be very long, but each song should be like a statement,
Mm-hmm.
and the only preparation will be, well, now maybe I'll do something faster, or maybe more aggressive. Okay, so I did. And then, well, I just did that. Maybe now I could do something again, very more harmonic oriented in melody, but maybe how about this one? I'll start on a high range and just do kind of like a descending line. And I
Mm-hmm.
repeat that a couple of times. Because you have to remember, like, you some lines that you play, like have kind of ascending tendency. you don't want to over repeat that too many times. Like,
Right.
maybe something more descending. And okay, now I play some like a high range. How about expose more of the low range, which I'm always trying to expose on my bass playing. Low range, more
Mm-hmm.
than the highest, attractive
Sure.
range that everybody's waiting for. The
Yeah,
low range
yeah, yeah.
of the bass,
Right.
the beautiful, the valid um, voice that we have. So it's hard to like really explain, but I just generally didn't want to do it too long and just want to kind of like let the song kind of take its own life and like the kind of a chorus. And when it feels like it needs to end, it needs to end.
Yeah, yeah,
I like you didn't want to like go for like 10 minutes because I've done that in the past, which I would probably do like an intro for 5 or 10 minutes. But on this one, I thought, yeah, maybe I'll just make some shorter statements, and this may be something that I can present to my students.
yeah. Was it a conscious decision not to involve the bow? Or did it just kind of work out that way?
I don't do much bow at all, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Bow, it's a whole different instrument. And
Yes, it
the
is.
way
You're
my
right.
basses are set up, it's got strings on the top, G and
Okay.
D, and that just, I can never get a good sound out of it.
No, no, that's gonna be super scratchy.
But by the way, I'm going to set up one of my other basses for classical, I think this spring, and I'm going to do again back more of the bow practicing, and hopefully I can record something eventually. That needs like different strings and a whole different
Yeah, yeah.
set. You
Sure.
know,
Sure. What are
But
your
all my
two
solos is like it's all pizzicato.
yeah. What are you so if the G and D are gut, what are your two lower strings then?
Tomastic spiral chord.
Okay.
And I over the years I tried a lot of different gut strings for the bottom and could never find the right, type of a string that would actually sound good and be consistent. I had a lot of problems with trying to match. But A&E Tomastics has been good, and I've been
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah, I love the E. Like the E, the growl of the Tomastic on the low E is like unparalleled. Like it's just a fresh set. Like you just put it on, it stretches, it sets into the bass, and like it just gets a growl that's uh
And it's
yeah.
something I'm used to. It's like my generation, almost everybody back in the day was using Tomastic spiral chords.
Right, right. That did become
Because
the
once you get used to certain feel and sound, you try some other strings and I never like any Pirastros, even though I might put some Pirastros on for a classical setting.
I've been hearing good things about the Passiones, the Parastro Passiones for classical, and
Mhm.
the Perpetuals. I'm not by any means endorsing Parastro strings with this, but I've heard good things, and I've kind of, been interested to put those on my bass and check them out. But as you know, switching out upright strings is not a cheap hobby. You can't just
I
go.
I threw away a lot of strings that I bought with my own money, and
Yeah.
I didn't like them. A lot of strings. Well, one time Pirastro sent me the whole box of strings of all their most expensive gut strings.
Okay.
It was like $2,000 of strings, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know, I guess they're trying to develop some relationship with me, maybe a endorsement or something. But it took me a while to really try all those strings on different bases, and ended up not liking any of them, Ryan.
Yeah.
I felt bad because they were really nice to me, and they wanted
Sure.
me to write some comments, and maybe commit to, and I could not use any of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean that's commendable that you didn't just do it for the press or whatever, that you went for sound and concept of sound first over any kind of just artist relationship deal.
I might go back to some of the Pirastro strings for my classical for
Yeah.
bowing, and I'm pretty sure it's going to work out great. But for pizzicato, for my jazz pizzicato, the sound I've been trying to develop over the years and really get a projection, articulation, a tone. I have to have my Tomastics on the bottom, and I'm using gut strings made by a string maker in Oregon, Damian Dugoletsky. He's a
Okay.
Polish descendant, a very good string maker. Even though right now I feel like I've heard that he's not making many strings. He's taking some time off and just trying to go into more like a retirement stage of his life. So I'm not sure how much longer I'll be able to use his strings, but those are good.
Have you been playing those for a while then?
For a long time, at least 20 years now.
Oh wow. Wow. Okay.
That after Golden Spiral went out of business. That was a really good company. They used to make the strings that everybody, Charlie Hayden and all the great jazz bass players were using for decades. And then the original owner passed away, and then somebody took over. I think one of the major companies tried to take over. Something didn't work out. I mean, making gut strings, Ryan, it's a tough business.
Yeah, I would assume so. Yeah.
Get the right quality of the product, and then you have animal activists after you all the time, banging at the door, and it's really not a pleasant, job.
Do you know much about that process? Because I don't. I don't know the process of
I
making them. I don't.
know.
That's fair. That's fair.
I almost don't want to know the details, but it's an animal. It's guts.
Right.
That they take out of whoever animal. If there's a cat at my place, the cat is gonna go around my base and give me the dirtiest look and sniff it up.
Right.
So they know. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's really, I need that sound, that feel.
Yeah.
And I'm working on that for decades now. So, for pizzicato, for jazz, pizzicato is amazing. For classical is not.
We'll be back right after this.
This portion of the Bass Shed podcast is brought to you by the International Society of Bassists, commonly referred to as ISB. Visit isbworldoffice.com for news and events. Also check out the tri-annual publication Bass World, which features articles about jazz and orchestral performers, soloists, sheet music, and recordings. isbworldoffice.com is a wonderful resource for bassists. isbworldoffice.com. Get featured on the Bass Shed podcast. Stop by thebassshed.com/feature to get featured on the Bass Shed podcast. Promote your upcoming gigs, tour dates, recordings, social media handles, and more. Featured listeners are also included in my newsletter, so you can get followers on the interwebs. You can also engage by clicking support the show in the episode notes of this episode and all other episodes. Get featured on the Bass Shed podcast and get heard by the bass community around the world. All right, some new records for you all to check out. Bassist Mark Egan released a new album titled Cross Currents last month. This recording is a collection of 11 tunes. There will be 2 additional bonus tracks. So depending on the format you engage with the album on, there are 2 bonus tracks. Those 2 bonus tracks consist of one paying homage to Lou Soloff and the other paying homage to Jaco Pastorius. Definitely check out the album. Mark is my guest on an upcoming episode of the Bass Shed podcast, and I hope you will all tune in to hear about the album from the man himself, Mr. Mark Egan.
Excellent, sir.
To go back to something you said just a few minutes ago about intention and attitude, I can't remember if it was a Hayden quote or an Elvin quote, but like really kind of risking this element of risk, that you have to put into everything. How do you go about mentally and emotionally shifting into that before a performance? And how do you work on cultivating it to grow in it?
Mm-hmm. Good question, Ryan. At some point in our lives, when we're in our late teens or early 20s, we decide this is going to be our life, our lifestyle. We develop this routine of living. We want to have enough solitude, enough time to focus on music. We don't want to be bothered with a lot of other things. We want to have time to practice, to listen, and being in a certain focus. When you talk to great musicians, they seem to be very focused on the art. And they might neglect a lot of other things. And
Right.
But see, that's kind of like a sacrifice that you make. And at some point you feel that, this is what you do. And it's incredibly important. And you try to maintain the level of focus and performance every day, and some of the great masters say, yeah, play as if it was the last time in your life that you play. And some other people say, well, play as if it was the first time you ever play, like if you're a child and you don't know nothing. And I still remember my first times that I ever started playing music and how amazing that was, the
Mm-hmm.
sound. So, and as I said before, there's no guarantee that you're going to be great tonight or tomorrow. You can sometime prepare and practice and have a good night's sleep and a meal. And then you go on stage.
Yeah,
Not,
yeah,
I
yeah.
was like, wow, I thought tonight is going to be great. And it's
Yeah,
not. There's those other times where you travel and there's delayed flights and you lose the connection. And there's this whole nightmare. You're going to 24 hours and then you arrive in some destination. You have to go straight to the gig. You
right.
haven't even taken a shower. It's terrible. You exhausted, jet lagged, and then you play music and it's magic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of hard to predict how our mind is going to work, how our body is going to react, and how we're going to make it happen, in a moment. Sometimes you really want to make it happen, you push it too hard, and it's not great.
Mm-hmm.
But there's other times when you just let it go. And you're in a state of mind that actually everything is falling in the right places. And you go, wow, I'm hardly even doing anything. This is happening.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there's not necessarily a specific quote unquote pregame regimen you have of like taking 20 minutes to do a meditation or anything. It's just kind of leaving it up to what it's going to be this experience. Again, because there's a lot of risk just in that of the abandon of like, I don't know, let's see.
Yeah, well, I do a lot of maintenance, like practice.
Mm-hmm.
I try to practice every day and I have my practicing routines. Nothing too mysterious, just basic material like scales, arpeggios, patterns on different keys. I focus on one or two keys per day. And then I practice the music that I have to practice. People send me all folders of music for gigs. I have to focus on that. So there's that kind of everyday, let's say, workout. And that's my meditation, Brian. I don't do
Yeah,
any
yeah,
other. Music, practicing music is my meditation.
sure.
And I think some other great jazz musicians have said that before, like, yeah, music is a great meditation. So I don't practice any other type form of meditations. I don't feel like I need that.
Sure.
But, I have my morning coffee and I listen to music and I practice. And I like to have that time to myself. I don't want to be running somewhere, frantically
Yeah, right.
answering phone calls, or I'm not like the great in the morning. I need my time to like kind of
Yeah, 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 yeah.
get to it. And if I can practice after breakfast and coffee, that makes me so happy and so centered. And if I can spend like an hour or longer, that's that's a great start of the day for me,
Right.
and that probably serves as a form of meditation and being focused and being integrated again with an instrument.
Yeah. And I think it's important to know like when your peak hours are. Like I know my practice time is at night because that means that my phone's not going to be going off. I've done everything I can do that I need to do for the day and I can kind of turn off life a little bit. And now it's just here. In the morning, I've tried it and I've tried different things, when my best optimal time is. The
Mhm.
morning, I'm thinking about what I got to do the rest of the day and like, okay, I got to wrap this up by 1:00 because I got to go, here, there. And my mind's preoccupied, but at night, it's not. And I think that's what you're talking about is finding that time of how you set yourself up for success is really important.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of an opposite, but it's the late morning, early afternoon where I function best for practicing. But
Yeah,
then for performing, yeah, the night. And
sure.
to be in studio recording, maybe like in the afternoon, I like best. But gigs, of course, at night. So it's I don't know, it's different. Like the practice time is a whole different zone. Now
Yeah,
the recording in the studio, if I go to studio record, but if I gig, it's gonna be in the evening.
of course. Yeah.
I cannot practice at night. For me, I'm already too
Yeah.
tired.
Okay.
I can't do it. I tried because it would be
Yeah.
nice to have like the, dark, outside, and just inspiration and quiet
Sure.
room. I can't do it.
Yeah, yeah. Did you record this album at a specific time of day to get some of those feelings into
That
the
was
music?
actually in the evening. It was
Mhm.
raining. Yeah, it
Okay.
was raining. It was one evening. It was already, I don't know, maybe I started at 6 or something. Not very late.
Yeah.
Uh, Between 6 and 9 p.m. or something like that.
Okay. Okay. Like during a winter month where it was already dark around 6?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, cuz that's a specific mood in Southern California when it's dark and rainy. Like that's a very
Yeah.
specific mood. Um yeah, and I
Mhm.
felt like there's an atmosphere of that within those tunes. That's why I was curious. It didn't sound like you're at a studio with the lights on, and it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Like the moods that came through those pieces have a very kind of stark quality.
Yeah, there's a studio I like to go to when I do like a trio quartet recording, and we usually record late morning and afternoon. And it's dark in there,
Hmm.
like there's lights and it's very nice sound, and I feel great recording there. And the engineer Tali Sherwood, he records
Oh
my
yeah,
bass really well. So when I go to his studio, it will be not evening, not early morning, but afternoons, and it's usually great. And
that's
it's
cool.
fast set up, easy to get a good sound. Tali already kind of knows what I need. It took him a while to understand my sound.
I was curious if you like when you get to a studio where they're not unfamiliar with their sound. Do you know you already know, like, I know this mic works really well on my bass if it's placed,
Yeah.
just a foot off the F hole on the treble side. Use a, are you pretty detailed with stuff like that?
Yeah, I try to be, but it really depends. You go to some Hollywood fancy studio and there's all those egos,
Yeah.
producer and the engineer, and they have those expensive microphones and whatever history of making music. It's kind of hard to convince them, yeah, don't use that mic, use my mic.
Right, right,
They're
right.
this
Oh, do you bring
microphone.
your own mic? Do you bring your own mic to the
Well,
sessions?
I do, but I tried before, but they go like, no, this man,
Yeah.
it's even gonna work in the middle of the session. We're using our stuff. And then you go like, well, yeah, that's a great mic. But it gets too much bottom end. Can you just use like a EQ? You have all this board with all those knobs. You can use
Yeah.
some of No, it has to be flat. That's your sound. Like, no, that's not my sound.
Right.
The sound is it has to be manipulated. I'm really into manipulating the sound. So
Mm,
after you hear me record in my place, yeah, I sit actually for hours trying to get EQ, compression, a little reverb,
sure.
and a few plugins, nothing fancy, but actually getting the tone that I want.
What is
Um,
the mic that you use for your bass?
on the solo recordings, you're gonna laugh, but it's a Nadine microphone. It's a kind of like a clip microphone. It's a company that it's Trumpet Laboratory is the name of the company. Trumpet
Okay.
Lab, and the sub name for the actual mic is Nadine. And
Okay.
it's a little mic that it's mounted
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
under
Yeah.
the bridge. Yeah, and it records great my bass for my
Great.
home recordings, for my studio recordings, which means all my solo records are done here.
Yeah.
A simple setup, but I can really get the sound out of this thing. And I've had some other mics before, and I tried them, and it was good. Um, and if I go to a studio that I like, and I like the engineer, like Tali Sherwood, he's got some microphone. I don't even know what it is. And like,
Yeah.
"Tali, do the thing. I know you're gonna get me a great sound."
Sure.
And he uses that mic, which is kind of a big looking mic, and then or another mic he puts somewhere. He kind of has his science going there. And then he also has some good preamp, and he knows how to EQ it. So then when he does it, I'm satisfied. But then
Cool.
there's a lot of other studios that I'm definitely not crazy at recording at. And I've done a lot of recordings, and like, man, I wish I could just sit down at that board and get my sound. But a lot of
Right.
times they won't let you use it. They won't let you do that. And they just kind of look at you as like,
What preamp do you use for your home studio, or what preamp did you
oh,
use for this
I
album?
don't even know what I forget what it is. It's nothing fancy. Gosh, I have to look into this. It's a very unfancy preamp that I just happen to have. What is it? Headway Music Audio.
Okay.
Headway, I don't know if you're familiar. I actually bought this preamp because one of my colleagues passed away several years ago. A really good bass player, Roger Shue.
Yeah.
And he had this cancer. He was only in his 30s, you know.
I
Great
remember hearing about it, and I was playing a lot with a piano player named Matt Politano, who was really tight with Roger. And I never met Roger, but I heard about it just from the scene, and talked to Matt a lot about it.
Yeah, so his widow Jamie, she was selling out some equipment, and so I just went to the house. It's like, Jamie, whatever you got, I buy for you. Whatever
Yeah.
you need, I'll write you a check. So I bought a preamp, I brought a DPA mic.
Oh, nice.
That actually, after a while, was faulty. There was something buzzing. I was playing a big concert with Pat Metheny and using that mic, and there was some rattling going on. Eventually, it developed some rattling, so I had to get rid of it. And I bought Nadine, and that is kind of a sturdy mic with a kind of a sturdy cable, well mounted. And I also bought an amplifier from Jamie Shue. So I happened to have this preamp, and I just plugged it in, and I found some settings that are cool, and my setup is very simple.
Yeah.
There's nothing fancy about the equipment that I have.
What were you playing with Metheny? Did you do a tour with him?
I did a bunch of tours with him. We did some trio playing with Joe
Okay.
Dice on drums, and we did trio with Jonathan Barber, a really good drummer, and orchestra, like a symphony orchestra gigs.
Oh, cool.
So if we went for like a tour, not a long tour, like a 2-week tour, we'd play a trio gig, and then the same location, same venue, or same city, we'll rehearse with an orchestra and do trio plus orchestra.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's fun. I think we're going to do more of those.
Who did the I mean, I'm assuming it's all Metheny tunes. Who arranged the strings for his music?
Yeah, there's I think one or two by Pat, but most of them was, I think, Alan Broadbent, and those are
Okay.
great. And a few other guys. I forget the names now. But gorgeous arrangements and really nice tunes and just great.
Everything he writes is just a winner in my opinion. I love his writing. There's always an element of surprise. The melody is so singable, harmonically. There's both enough freedom and enough demanding information. It's really he puts together so many things in a tune that's will be translated to the listener really well. He's a genius, and I think one of the living legends that what he's doing for the music and how he's made his stamp on it. It's pretty remarkable. I'm in awe of his playing, the sounds he gets with the guitar, his writing. Like, I'm a big fan of all of it. I'm a huge Metheny fan.
Incredible musician, and he's really nice guy to work with, man. He's fantastic.
How did you? I mean, I know him and Charlie were tight. Did you get introduced to Pat through Charlie?
Actually, no. The way I first started working with Pat was many years ago in Poland, early 2000. I think it was 2002, maybe, or 2003. There's a really nice singer, Anna Maria Jopek, that I did some projects and touring with. She would bring me from California to Poland, and we'd go to the studio and then eventually do the tour. And then there was this idea of inviting for one of the projects Pat and actually record his music with Anna singing and actually contributed lyrics to in Polish.
Okay.
And it was kind of like an all-star project. It brought me from Poland to Warsaw and recorded in the best studio there with the best musicians. It was an amazing project. And that's how we met first.
Okay.
And then we kind of stayed in touch. On that one album that we recorded, we did also a duo, this Polish movie famous team that we decided to do without a vocal, just guitar and bass. And then we kind of saw each other a few times over the years. And then again, a Polish promoter asked Pat if he would consider coming to do a festival and playing the music that he recorded with Charlie Hayden on this album, Beyond the Missouri Sky,
Love that album.
with orchestra, with
Oh,
arrangement.
wow.
And Pat said, I would consider that, but only if Darek Oles is available to do that too,
Oh, nice.
which was incredible. It's like, wow. Okay.
Wow.
So the promoter is calling me. I kind of knew the promoter a little bit. He said, Pat just said that he would do it if you're free to do it. It was like, I'm on the beach in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, I'd love to do it too. Wow.
Yeah.
Then I had all those great emails from Pat, and people. So that's how we started that orchestral thing and trio thing. And then pandemic disrupted everything. We got a lot of really nice gigs canceled. And they're still rescheduling those gigs, like the big orchestral gigs, like in Paris. And they're still pushed. And hopefully 2 years from now, we're going to do it. Like
Oh, wow.
orchestral.
Wow, they're pushed that far back. I mean, I guess some of that could make sense because of contracts and getting the orchestra, and fitting it into their program and the venues.
Very
And there's,
complicated.
there's a lot of moving parts, more so than just doing a trio hit. But, wow, that's pretty far out. And also, what an experience. Just what a great experience to attend as a patron to hear that music in such a lush display. I think that'd be really, really amazing.
Being a bass player and having orchestra and Pat and either Jonathan or Joe, it's like being in heaven. It's absolutely just you right in the middle of it.
Sure.
You hear that natural sound coming from everywhere behind you and from left and right. That's really special.
Yeah, that's powerful. Are they all slated to be European orchestras, or were there dates?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we never travel with an orchestra. That's impossible.
Sure.
But we meet orchestra and location. We did several of those in Italy with a conductor that was there, and in Poland and in Georgia and some places like that.
But nothing in the States, like no.
We haven't done anything in States yet. I wish we could.
Yeah.
We wish we could do it in LA,
Yeah, me too. Then I could go.
I could invite hopefully some friends.
Yeah.
But right now they're again focusing on a European tour.
Sure.
To do that with, and this time it sounds like they want to do like a good size, like a good length tour. So
cool.
Longer than 2 weeks or something, but we'll see how that goes.
With the release of this album and then that 2 years away, what's in the middle? What other projects do you have kind of on the closer horizon?
Well, there's a really nice album that we just recorded with the quartet of Bob Minzer, Peter Erskine, and Alan Pasqua.
Okay.
And that's should be coming out soon. Then I have some nice gigs. I'll be in 2 months in Poland on a festival. I'm playing with Brad Mehldau and Jorge Rossi again. We haven't played in 20 years.
Okay.
We have a nice reunion coming up. And there's another reunion with Eddie Henderson that I haven't played in also like in 20 years. And some of my Polish friends and Marvin Smith on drums with us. And then a tour again with the quartet I just mentioned with Bob Minzer, Peter Erskine. I've been working quite a bit with Peter Erskine the last several years.
Mm-hmm.
So we do trio tours or quartet tours. We just did one last summer with George Garzoni in Italy. We did 22 concerts. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And
just the trio with
that was
George?
A quartet.
Okay.
That was Alan, Peter, George, and I. So that was a quartet.
Okay.
Or sometimes we do a trio tour with Alan and Peter. We actually recorded a nice album in Italy, and it was nominated for Grammy Awards last year.
Oh, cool.
Live in Italy album. So yeah, there's between those connections, I have some plans, some touring plans and recording. I can't think of anything right now, like another recording project. The recording business is so bad that people are not recording as much as they used to. I used to go to record all the time for people, albums, whatever. Now it's not so easy.
Sure.
Yeah.
What about writing? Do you make it part of any kind of standardized discipline to write regularly?
No, I'm
No.
not. I'm not a professional composer. I don't do that. I practice bass, I play bass, and if I write something, it has to be like like a spur of the moment, like inspiration. And sometimes I sit on a tune for weeks trying to complete it. And when I do, it's usually a complete already done in
Yeah.
ink. But I haven't been doing much writing, to tell you honestly, lately. For whatever reason, have not written anything down. But the Moods in Freedom, I'm planning on transcribing and actually
Mm.
having those pieces that are recorded being available as a, let's say, PDF, pieces written out.
Yeah, yeah.
So that, demonstration again, how to improvise freely and compose in a moment. Here it is, how it looks like. Here's how it sounds like.
When I think about bass soloists that are great at composing, Charlie is at the top of my list. Michael Brecker's first album, the self-titled, there's a ballad called Cost of Living on that record, and Charlie plays one of the best bass recorded solos I think ever. Like, it is in one form. He goes from this little 5-note singable thing all the way to complete abandon up in thumb position and double stops, and tells this whole story that is incredibly connected. How much did you and Charlie discuss that? Discuss the storytelling element of composition and soloing?
Charlie was a huge influence, and it's obvious in my playing. You can hear pieces of Charlie's playing and his sound. Lessons with Charlie, you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes he would not really give you much of instruction, but it was very inspiring to be around Charlie. Sometimes we would just like listen to something. I would ask him questions. He would bring some cassette of the recording session he did with Paul Bley and Paul Motion, which is the most amazing thing, or some other old recording we listen to. Or we just go and have coffee at the cafeteria in CalArts. Or sometimes we play two basses, some tune,
Yeah.
some Ornette Coleman tune, or we play blues or something, and he would give me a few comments. But in general, it was great to listen to him talk about what he thinks about life and about what he thinks about music. And then if we listen to the music, he would point out in some moments. He was an amazing listener. He would listen a lot. He would listen a lot of music. Even to his latest days when he was already very weak and sick, and he was listening, and he had an amazing stereo system at home. He would
Yeah.
listen to a lot of music. And we would sit down and listen. And sometimes he would point something, oh, check this out. But he would not give you a theoretical analysis of anything, of his own music, of his own compositions. Sometimes I have to kind of like loosely analyze things and present it to my students, like, okay, here's why is this diminished chord there? Oh, it looks weird on the page, but this is what it really refers to,
Right.
and this is how it resolves. So basically, we have just dominant tonic, dominant tonic, dominant tonic in the 16-bar magic tune. So here's how you can work with it. But Charlie would never explain that, So he would talk about, being about inspiration, about life, about a lot of great things. He was
more on the philosophical, conceptual.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was absolutely great. And then he would bring a joke, he was always having a new joke. So I just took whatever I could. To me, he didn't have to have an agenda. As long as he just showed up, which he wasn't always actually showing up. He was on tour a lot.
Yeah.
Whenever he was there, Ryan, it was a big bonus for me. It was my day. It was like, wow, I spent an hour with Charlie.
That's amazing.
Whatever it was.
Yeah.
But he would bring his bass, he would bring bag of CDs. Man, he would roll that stuff from the parking lot all the way to the... When I think about it, I was like, wow, Charlie used to carry all that stuff.
Yeah.
and play, man, with students and listen and spend like Tuesday at college. That was Charlie's day once a week,
Yeah.
whenever he was in town. So, I can't specifically answer your question, but that's what it's like. He was busy, he was all over the world, and he was very, very inspiring. Not only when he played, but when he just was there, just
Right.
being around Charlie.
Yeah. The same level of investment and intention that we can hear in his playing, it sounds like he's showing up
Yeah.
with. You spoke about listening and the importance of listening. What are you listening to right now?
I have a stack of music that I haven't gotten to yet. But one of the things I discover when people give me CDs and albums, and and I listen and appreciate all their work. Some of my former students, and some of my colleagues. This morning I listened to Ethan Iverson' new album called Technically Acceptable.
Okay.
And on the album, he's got Thomas Morgan, who's one of my
Hmm.
favorite bassists.
Yeah, yeah.
Thomas Morgan is great. And the drummer, I don't remember, a younger drummer now. And it's a very funny album, man. It's hilarious. It's
Huh.
corny,
Okay.
quirky on purpose.
Yeah, of course. Sure.
It's funny, man. So I think I'm gonna play a couple of gigs with him in April with Peter Erskine and Ethan. So I was
Okay.
checking out some music just this morning. I have to listen to Benny Lochner's album, also great pianist. He's recording now from ECM. We have a gig coming up in about 10 days in San Diego. Beautiful quartet recording that he put out last year. And Benny Lochner is a pianist that lives in Germany, and he was a college student many years ago.
Okay.
One of our best students. So Benny stuff. Recently, like last weekend, I came across this album I've never heard before. Art Pepper Quintet from 1960 called Smack Up.
Oh, wow.
And
I don't know though.
got Pete Jolly on piano that I used to play gigs with.
Okay.
He's got Jimmy Bond on bass. Great, great bass player that used to be very active here in LA.
Who
Frank
was it?
Butler. He did a lot of great work. Jimmy Bond.
Okay.
Like James Bond, like Jimmy Bond,
Okay.
Swinging, great. Frank Butler on drums and Jack Sheldon on trumpet. Man, everybody sounds amazing, and they have really good tunes prepared for the session.
Nice.
There's this blues in five they play, man.
Oh, nice.
It's like an odd meter.
Yeah, yeah.
And the rhythm changes, the tune written by Harold Land called Smack Up
Okay.
with big bridge there. I mean, it's a fantastic album.
Huh.
And I was never a big fan of Art Pepper. Come on, like I like some of his work, but not a lot. But this album, it's amazing. So
Okay. I'm gonna have to check that one out.
somebody gave me my stepson gave me as a present live in Seattle, John Coltrane, the vinyl that just came out.
What era of Coltrane? Was this the quartet?
No, this is 1966, I think. This
Okay.
is very,
Okay.
oh, actually, they play A Love Supreme. So this was 1965 or 1966, and they improvised freely. It was a live gig the tapes were kind of hidden for decades and recently discovered and remastered. And
Okay.
so I've been listening to that as well. And
Nice.
there's a lot of stuff. I listen every day to something.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you make that kind of a systematic thing to always make sure you listen to something new, that you haven't heard, or instead of just revisiting classics?
I don't like make an assignment to myself. I just,
Sure.
I do have a stack of records that I still haven't gotten to. There was one summer a few years ago, Ryan, I was sitting in my living room and listened to about 150 albums.
Nice. That sounds amazing.
CDs. Yeah, and I like some old music, some new music.
Yeah.
That summer was just amazing. I listened to a lot of music. Well, it's not always like that. Sometimes I just get tired, and I get too busy, and I don't
Sure.
have enough space in my head. But regularly I listen.
Yeah. That's cool, man. Cool. To wrap it up, the new album is on all the streaming platforms. should we be paying attention to when maybe some transcriptions are going to be coming at
I'll
us?
let you know. I have to
please
find
do.
it. I'm gonna get a little busy now because my daughter is just about to deliver her second child. I'm
Oh,
gonna have a
wow.
granddaughter
Congratulations.
now.
Yeah.
Thank you. I already have a grandson who's 2 years old, just turned 2.
Oh,
We're gonna get busy here, you
yeah,
know. So
yeah.
I'm not sure when I'm gonna have time to sit down. I already transcribed a lot of my solo kind of instructional stuff, but this free Moods in Freedom project, I should be able to do it in next month or two. So when I have it nicely put together, I'll let you know.
Yeah, please do. Again, the album is Moods in Freedom, excuse me. Darek, thanks so much for being on, man.
Thank you, Ryan. It was a pleasure.
Yo, this is Craig Gash. Subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on the Instagram, the YouTube.
Okay.
Leave us a comment.
I just stubbed my toe!
All right. That was my talk with Darek Oles. I love his commitment to tone and sound and the inspiration that can happen by just a rich sound of an instrument, of your instrument, hopefully. You know, that everybody's playing in a way. They're producing this rich sound that offers them inspiration. I think that was great to hear Darek speak about that, because it's something so important that can easily be overlooked by getting caught up in some kind of theoretical thing or rhythmic thing or whatever. You're trying to push some agenda on the music instead of just releasing and being inspired by the pure nature of sound coming off your instrument. I thought that was beautiful. I had popped into the baked potato to hear Darek actually play with the fantastic quartet a few days after we did this interview. Like I had heard Darek play a lot before on albums, but it was great to experience his playing after speaking with him about all these things and kind of witness all the things we discussed firsthand in the room. That was fantastic. Again, Darek's album is titled Moods in Freedom. Definitely check out that recording. All right, folks. That's about all I got for this one. Thanks for listening, and I will catch you on the next one in a minute.